I would like to share with you another way to deal with unpleasant memories or things that are short of PTSD. That's really for the bilateral therapies, but are still they're there. It's nagging. It's feeling bad about it, that kind of thing. In an area called submodalities. Let me explain. This is a subset of neurolinguistic programming. And I'm taking this out of my book, Cracking the Code, which actually was written as a book about neurolinguistic programming, about NLP. And we put it in the context of politics, but it's actually a very good NLP book. And the modalities that we talked about last week, when we were going through Cracking the Code, the modalities, the principal modalities are sight, sound, and touch. And then also as primary modalities, but not, most people don't have them as their primary modalities, are smell, taste, and balance. These are the sensory systems that we have immediate and segregatable access to. You can just pay attention to what you're seeing. You can just pay attention to what you're hearing. You can just pay attention to what you're feeling, or what you're tasting, or what you're smelling, or your balance relative to the room around you. So these are the primary modalities. And as I mentioned last week, typically most people have one that is their front and center modality. I've only ever known, actually in my life, I've known two people who have as their primary modality taste. They can remember, these people, both of them, can tell me when we got together by what we ate at the time. Oh yeah, I remember back 2 years ago we got together and we had, and they will list everything that was on the menu that they ate. I have no recollection of it, but because, and they're both people who have struggled all their lives with weight, which I find fascinating. And I'm not sure which is chicken and which is egg here. But principally, about 70% of Americans have visual as their primary modality, auditory as their secondary, and kinesthetic as their tertiary. Some people have auditory as their primary one. I do, for example. I think it's why I do radio well, is I catch auditory nuance. I'm not so concerned with how I look and how things around me look. And so my office, my desk tends to be a mess. I only reluctantly wear makeup on television. I don't wear it for the radio show. I don't, you can typically tell when somebody is primarily visual because every hair is in place. They're very, very conscious of how they look. And this is not a put down. I mean, this is, visual people look at people who aren't visual and go, wow, look at that slob. And whereas people who are not visual look at visual people and go, look at how fastidious that person is. Why would they put all that effort into making sure that but in any case. So then you've got people who have feelings as their primary way of experiencing the world, and they have a challenge learning. So what about the subsets of these modalities? And how does this influence how we remember things? And I'm going to give you an exercise for this, by the way. The subsets of visual modalities, the principal ones are, in other words, if I were to say to you, remember something that has recently happened to you that is either it's easiest to work with relatively unpleasant memories, a waiter who treated you poorly, or somebody who insulted you, or, a bad experience with a boss or a colleague, something that's not life-ending, it's not game-changing, it's just, it's an irritation that you're still carrying around. And you still think about it. It still bothers you. Okay. When you look at that memory, and I use this visual language very advisedly, even knowing that some people who are principally auditory or kinesthetic, they can still access, usually, pictures. Some people are so kinesthetic they can't access a picture, and in which case I would say to them, when you bring up the feeling of that experience, you may see a picture associated with it. And then they access the picture through their feelings. But in any case, you bring up that picture. Is it a still picture or a movie? Your memory of that event. Is it in color or black and white? These are the subsets of the visual modality. So we call them submodalities in neurolinguistic programming and in NLP. Is how big is it? Where is it located in space? Usually when memories are really hot, they really affect us a lot, you ask somebody, where is it? Oh, it's right here, 2 feet in front of my face, or 4 feet away. How big is it? Oh, it's, 4 feet square. You ask them about something that's irrelevant or something that they remember from a couple of weeks ago that they've processed, and they'll say, oh, yeah, it's about 15 feet off in the distance, and it's a black and white still picture. But color, movies, and then you ask about the sound submodalities. Is there sound to it? Do you hear the voices? And if so, does the sound screechy or rumbly? I mean, has it been twisted in some way by your brain, so your memory, so that it seems more ominous or less? Or is it just a good, clean recording? So, and these are the sound submodalities. And then the feeling submodalities. Do you see yourself in the picture? If so, how are you feeling about that picture? Do you have a sensation somewhere in your body that is associated with this? I remember seeing Richard Bandler do this on stage in London back 15 or more years ago. And he had a guy come up on stage who had some horrible memory that was really troubling him. And this is one of the cool things about NLP is you don't have to reveal your secrets. We never learned what this guy's memory was. We just know that it was bad enough that it almost brought him to tears when he accessed it. And he was insisting that he could not bring up a picture. So Bandler said, okay, cool, come on up on stage. And he says, okay, bring that feeling up. Where is it? And the guy says, right here in my stomach and chest, my solar plexus. And Bandler says, is it spinning right or left? And the guy said, or clockwise or counterclockwise? And the guy said, it's spinning. If you're looking from the front, it's spinning clockwise. And Bandler said, then take a giant metaphysical or mental crank handle, put it into it, and reverse the spin. Crank it in the other direction. And within less than 20 seconds, this guy was laughing about this memory that had been so horrible for him. That's shifting a kinesthetic submodality. So how do we, and the goal is always to produce this outcome, to take something out of a part of the brain that stores memories of I was hurt, I was a victim, I was in pain, to take it out of those places and have it relocate itself. And this happens automatically. The brain does this automatically. Have it relocate itself into a part of the brain that is where we store things. Oh, yeah, that happened to me and I learned from it. That was not all that pleasant, but, what I got out of it was, some benefit. In other words, there's, smarter, older, and wiser kind of thing, And so move things out of the, oh, my God, this hurts, into the, boy, I'm glad that's over, and, gee, here's what I learned from it. And so we're going to go through, after the break, in 5 minutes, or 4 minutes, we're going to go through exactly how you do that with a visual or auditory submodality. I already told you how to do it with a kinesthetic submodality. And I'll give you the specific example of how to do it, and you can try it yourself, try it with others. This is just fun stuff. It doesn't require a degree. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And let me be very clear. This is not medical advice or psychology advice. This is discovering how our brains work. It's fascinating stuff. I'm just going to share this very, very simple technique with you. You can follow along with us, although if you're driving, I would suggest you not do that because it can be a distraction from your driving. It's very simple. Once you understand it, you don't have to know the exact language that I'm using. You don't have to remember the exact order of things because it's basically the principle of the thing. Just like with bilaterality, we talked about that. We started out with some very specific things that were done. James Braid moving the watch back and forth with the eyes. But, it turns out you can do it just standing in place, moving, left toes, right, and nobody even knows it, right? So how do we do submodality shifts? Well, first of all, why are they important? When the brain stores, when our mind stores information, our mind sorts and stores information based on emotional content. And that emotional content has a set of submodalities associated with it. So things that are, bad memories tend to have a particular visual quality to them and a particular auditory quality and a particular feeling associated with them. And they are located, and if you ask the person, where is this located, they can point to it. They can say, there it is, right there. There it is over there. Or it's right in here, or it's right over here. So what we do with submodality shifts is, the brain is constantly, it's a self-healing mechanism. And it's constantly looking for opportunities to make things better. And so what we're doing by interfering, basically, or interrupting the pattern of where a memory is stored, and by changing the submodalities associated with that storage, what we are doing is giving the brain an opportunity to change the submodalities. And what that does is it automatically relocates into a different part of the brain the memory. Now, when you relocate the memory into a different part of the brain, the meaning of the memory changes. And you will experience this if you do this exercise, and you can walk other people through it, and you'll notice that they will experience it too. It's really simple stuff. Kids can do it. Adults can do it. This is not psychology. This is brain science. It's fascinating stuff. So, for example, actually, I did this on the air with a woman back in 2005 2006 when I was writing Cracking the Code. And because we were writing the book on the air, I was inviting people to call in and say, let me do this with you. And this woman named Barbara called. This was December 15th, 2006. And her name was Barbara. She was calling from Los Angeles. Tom, hi, Barbara. Thanks for calling in. What I'd like you to do is remember something in the recent past, the last week or so. It was a moderately unpleasant experience. The example that I'd like to give is like somebody flipping you off in traffic or a surly waiter. Barbara, yeah, I got one. Tom, you got one? Okay, great. This is from page 61 of my book, Cracking the Code. Tom, you got one? Okay, great. Now, I want you to describe to me the submodalities associated with it. In other words, when you remember that experience and you see the picture of that, do you see the picture in color or black and white? Barbara says color. I said, okay, describe in space where it is. Is it in front of you, behind you? Where is it, like 5 feet in front of you, 20 feet in front of you, 6 feet off to your left? Barbara says, in front of me. Tom, it's in front of you. How far away? Barbara, I would say 10 to 5 feet. Tom, 5 feet. Okay, is there sound associated with it? Barbara, yes, there's sound. Okay, is it a movie or a still picture? It's a movie, she says. Okay, great. So what I'd like you to do, Barbara, and by the way, I can tell you, I remember this. Her voice was very, very sober, very somber. This was a memory she did not like. What I'd like you to do is push that picture about twice as far away from you. Push it like 10, 15, 20 feet away from you, first of all. She says, okay, I've done it. Now, the reason you have somebody do that is to just get some space. We have this cliche in our culture, I need some space from that. Right? Well, you can literally push it away, and that's the first submodality shift. You've changed it spatially. She says, okay, I've done it. And I said, okay, now try and turn it black and white. She says, okay, that's hard. That's hard to turn it into black and white. And I said, okay, interesting. Well, we can leave it color if you want. Maybe your brain doesn't want it black and white yet. Barbara, no, my brain does not want it black and white. Okay, that's cool, I said. Leave it as color. I want you to scroll all the way to the end of the movie and freeze frame it. She says, okay, I've freeze framed it. And I say, and now, in just a second, I'm going to make a whoosh sound, and I'm going to ask you to play it backward. And you know how when you play an old movie backward, everybody moves like in the old Charlie Chaplin movies, and everybody talks, Chaplin in movies, and everybody talks backwards like Donald Duck? I want you right now to play it backward all the way back to the beginning with everything going backward. Whoosh, just like that. And she says, yep, I did. I said, okay, all the way back to the beginning. Now freeze frame it at the beginning. Do you see yourself in the picture, or do you see it as if you were there? She said, I see myself in the picture. Now, this is called dissociated. This is a dissociated picture. An associated picture is where you see everything. You don't see yourself. You're seeing it as if you're there looking through your eyes. A dissociated picture is where you're standing outside and you're seeing yourself in it. Okay. I said, okay, great. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to paint rainbows across that picture now and put donkey ears on everybody in the picture except yourself. She says, okay. I said, okay, now how do you feel about the experience right now? And she starts laughing. And she said, what I did is I went back to the beginning and I said, okay, this didn't happen that way. And so I said, aha, you're laughing now. A few minutes ago, you weren't laughing about this experience. Barbara says, no, I wasn't. And so I said, okay, number one, you're laughing now. And number two, what you just told me is that the story about the experience has changed. Has it? The story that you tell yourself about what happened there? She said, yeah. And I said, typically what happens is stories change from, oh, gee, I was a victim to, oh, that happened, but I learned from it. Was that the kind of transition? She said, no, the transition was, okay, that happened. Let's just accept it and deal with it. That's it, instead of being so anxious about it. And so I said, okay, so have you transformed a memory by simply shifting the filing system that your brain uses for it? And she said, oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you, Tom. And I said, you're welcome. Thanks, Barbara. Oh, that's how you do it. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. It's in my book, Cracking the Code, but it's in a lot of good books on NLP. There's no shortage of them out there.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.